Hey, we're really doing good here. Okay. Let's try that. Yeah. He grew up here in the valley. His actual folks came out of Kansas, moved up here. They had a little farm out there east of Monty. And he grew up just learning how to ranch and farm and all that good stuff. He had two brothers, and a sister, so Bob, Vernon, and Arlene. A lot of you guys probably know Uncle Bob. He's pretty famous for the ski area. Everything, but
Sorry, we just need
what's he
to,
doing?
we need to click on something real
Okay.
fast.
Right.
Well, I did it in mine, but this is a different section. We've got,
Sure. But anyhow, he grew up there on the farm, and in his little spare time, he'd always go run a little trap line and trap muskrat, beaver, and go out for bobcat and Kyle too, just to give him a little bit of spending money. You know, things slowed down in the wintertime on the farm. As time went on, Grandpa got paralyzed where he couldn't go out there and farm like he used to. Oh, Jim, I think was, or not Jim, but my dad was about like 10th grade. And they decided to have him drop out of school to take care of the farm where the other three kids kept going to school to get their education. So he did that on the farm for quite a few years. Just took care of the place. You know, and then after, I think when Uncle Bob got out of the school, he got drafted into the World War II. So for sure, Dad missed the draft because he was having to stay home and take care of Dad at the farm. Anyhow, as he kept continuing to take care of the farm and stuff, so
we need to run the presentation. Why does this mouse not want to work? It doesn't work either. There we go.
yeah, this is my dad, and I'm guessing that's Uncle Bob out there on the farm back in the old days. But even when my dad was going to school and stuff for the little hobby, he sent off to little taxidermy school. I found one of these old pamphlets here. And then this is lessons in taxidermy. And it was in Northwest School of Taxidermy. And so that's how he got into the taxidermy, with his own home study himself. Stuff like that. So there. Can they see that good enough? That's right. Okay. All right. But then, as he was getting into the taxidermy, and a few of the neighbors were finding out about it, and they bring him a few things here and there. During the hunt seasons, he started taking off deer, elk hides to get them tanned for people. And still taking care of the farm. But then towards the end of the World War II, when Uncle Bob was getting out, that's about the time when the Predator Control Company here in the valley came to my dad and gave him up for a government job to go trap the bear and sheep in the high, or sheep and cows in the high country. They were killing sheep when they were ranging sheep up high. And he kind of hesitated about it for a while, and they told him, well, if you could catch a pig, get a bear. He decided to go ahead and do it after he talked it over with the family. and talked it over with Uncle Bob too, since he was coming back to help take care of the farm and everything, but. So anyhow, that, first summer when they went out, I think that was in the 42, he helped Uncle Bob get planning going and getting all that taken care of at the same time when he was getting all of his gear lined up to go out for the summer, because usually there was enough snow in the high country, you couldn't get up high until after 4th of July. That's when they started ranging their sheep up higher. But anyhow, about that first summer, John Larry was one of the government traffic people here in the valley. But since he was so busy, he couldn't run the high country all the time. That's when they decided to get my dad. And so the first 4 days, when my dad got lined out to go, John Larry went up there with him to the top of Spring Creek Pass and set up a base camp. And then from there, he went out and showed him the ropes and a few things like that. His first adventure up there, though, John Larry had a horse trailer to haul one of his horses, and then my dad had a little old car that could barely pull another horse trailer, but barely got up there. So that's how they got up there. But anyhow, he stayed out there with him for 3 or 4 days and showed him the ropes. And then after he came down, my dad was pretty much on his own, just going from camp to camp. And he took a pretty wide range. It's kind of all the way from kind of West Lost Trail Creek, following the divide, running clean over towards Wolf Creek Pass. So he rode that divide a couple times on horseback. That's 100 miles up there. And he was checking out sheep camps all the time. So he was pretty busy. I know one of his stories that after John had left, and then after he visited a few sheep camps, and of course, every time he did visit a sheep camp, the guys that were running the sheep, it was either an old Indian or a Spanish boy. They weren't very good at speaking English. And plus, when there's bear involved, they were pretty scared, pretty much hid in their tent most of the time too. But anyhow, my dad would visit with him and try to get their going on it, but he'd go out and set the traps, and then he'd go to the next camp, set the trap, and he'd make his rounds and come back and set them, or check them, and then go set more of whoever was having a problem. Sometimes he'd get word from the office, you know, when he'd come down a few miles out of one camp, he'd get resupplied with food supplies and stuff. He'd have a new set of instructions to check at a camp that maybe Archie had or Craig, or, you know, I'm not sure, or Lost Trail, or someplace like that. But he did mention one of the first times after his first bear, he was up there by himself. And he knew he got something, because all night long, this bear hollered and whimpered all night long because he got awful noises. Sounded like probably all heck was coming loose. But he knew he had gotten a bear when that happened. He got up early the next morning and went and got it. He always was pretty good. Most of his bear that he killed, he'd always kill it with the little 22 pistol that he had here. If you're a good shot, you can hit him just right behind the ear and drop him one bullet. But he always kind of commented that sometimes when people would bring in animals to, like a bear to get a rug mount made or something like that, people would tell him it took him 6 times or 6 shots before the bear came down. Big fierce bear. When my dad skinned the bear, you see all the bullet holes. There's a couple of them in the hindquarters, a couple of them in the gut. So it just goes to show you, you're a good shot. It shouldn't have took 6 bullets to take out the bear. But anyhow, buck fever happens and all that. You get excited. A few bullets fly. But anyhow, after he had trapped a couple summers, he had got enlisted, or he got his draft to go into the Korean War. So he did go into the Korean War he signed up for a year on reserve just for 12 months because he wanted to come back and keep doing taxidermy and trappings. And he had signed up for, since he was sewing so much, doing his taxidermy and working with leather and everything, he signed up with the tent repair, fixing canvas and things like that for the Army. So after he got out of boot camp, they had shipped him out to Virginia. And I got a couple old manuals that I found, tent repair books here. They're kind of pretty interesting. So they're kind of neat to look through stuff like that that's that old. But after he had got back from home, he came back to his government job in the summer. He'd still help Bob in the springtime, every time when plant season. But he did go up into the high country and still take care of the bears, Kyle problem, hit the sheep. And then as time went on, he did hear about a gal, my mom, Margaret, that was over in Florence, the other side of the mountain, the Arkansas mountain. And she had a ranch over there and did some trapping and stuff like that. And so when he kind of slowly got acquainted, he went and visited her a couple times. And he would go out with her on the trap ride and stuff. And there was one time that he had noticed that there was a skunk laying way far over in the bushes far away. He had to ask her, well, what'd you do with that? And he says, oh, it's a skunk that got my trap. And my dad tells her, he says, well, any good trapper can skin anything the bad way it gets there. So anyhow, after coming and then going back and visiting her a few more times, he did notice that she did get a skunk in the future. She was starting to kind of skin it. But I don't think her mom and dad was real impressed. Anyhow, as time went on, they eventually got together. And there was a couple times towards the tail end of his trapping career. Paul would go up with it a few times. Some of the quick check the camps and stuff. Because after my dad did kind of get out of the Army and trapped a little bit more, he did kind of do it for part-time with the fishing game. And then he was trying to get his business set up with a taxidermy business, and he bought a little piece of property here in town. It used to be a little, well, the house is still standing there. If anybody knows where the old co-op used to be, my mom and dad's place is right behind the old co-op, right across from the road. That's where they used to taxidermy. But, and then through time, they bought the place out here that you see on the far right over there in that picture. They bought that place. Oh, I think they purchased it in like 52 or something, and they hired somebody to help build them a little log cabin, and they moved out there in 1955. And my older brother Jim was born when they were living in town. And so they moved out there, and I'm guessing that picture, I'm thinking this picture right here on the, might be on my right if I look at it, but yeah, that's my older brother Jim and me. And we do have a lion there. And then that's me over there with the lion laying there on the ground. But after my dad had got his taxidermy work going, and they were so well known about working with animals and stuff, there was a hunter down in Arizona that had shot a lion, and they realized that the lion had been nursing some cubs. So they got a hold of my dad, and my dad was able to get the cubs, and he nursed those lions from the bottle, and that's where Patty and Doc came. So, but yeah, that's us. What's that?
Tell us what happened.
Well, I mean, they've been around for a while. There was a few times when Jim and I were out playing in the yard. One time, apparently, Jim must have loosened the latch on the door of the cage. And Doc come running out from behind the bushes somewhere and attacked me and was dragged me around by the neck. I was young enough, I don't remember that. Anyhow, a few more years went on after that. We still had Doc and Tabby, there was one evening that my dad was out in the shop and, there was, I think his name was Homer Brown that used to work with my dad there at the shop, helping with taxidermy and things like that. They were in the shop one evening taking pictures of the lions just out in the shop. And my mom and dad, and Homer were out there and they kept telling Jim to go to bed. He was being kind of on, he kept going out to the shop, didn't go back. But I guess the one time when they told him to get to bed, his floppy pajamas got the attention of the cat, so the cat started chasing him. So they went into the house, then back out into the shop, and out in the display room. They're trying to catch the cat, and Jim's hiding behind boxes and underneath piles of ice. Everything else trying to get away from the cat. So, I mean, we all had attacked by the lion once in our lives, except for one room there.
Did he do any movies with those cats?
Yes, yes, Bill Miller from Bismarck, North Dakota, came down one day and introduced himself, and he'd heard about my dad with the lion and all that. And he did a lot of photography up in Wyoming area and up there of different animals up there. And then he worked out a deal with my dad to use his lions to help take more pictures and different programs like that. But then the movie Cougar Country that came out in the 70s, that was my dad's film and Bill Miller's together. So there was about 85% of it was my dad's, and parts of it was Bill Miller's there. But then most of the lion pictures and all that was my dad's tame lion. Some of the other pictures of some of the big buffalo herds and elk and things like that that were in that were probably that came out of Wyoming, put it together and painted that. But yeah, it was a pretty interesting lifestyle. We'd always go out and help take those pictures with the lions too, because sometimes we'd have to hide behind a bush to help coax the lion in one direction, or coyotes, or like a coyote or a snake, or badger and a rattlesnake. It's pretty interesting when we had the badgers though, because we found out real quick that badgers are good for killing rattlesnakes right quick. If they won't mess with a bull snake, they will go up there and snip the bull snake. They won't mess with it. If they see a rattlesnake, their fur just puckers up over their face, and they just get real close to that snake. And if the snake strikes, then the badger ducks. It's one of those times when the snake strikes out, and that badger grabs it, just shakes the crap out. So shaking until he's dead. So yeah, we did a lot of different interesting things. But yeah, these are definitely some of the younger pictures when me and Jim were around before my other two brothers were here. So, yeah, yeah. Let's see what else we got to talk about. That's kind of the antler archway that my dad had started years and years ago. That thing got to be pretty big. Every weekend before I was even born, my mom and dad and Jim were always going out to the foothills for little picnics and things like that. And every weekend, he was always finding sheds. It took years and years of finding all that sheds that he added to that thing. But it's kind of pretty interesting lifestyle. That was
Yeah, it's that 3 miles west
that.
of Monte Vista was your shop.
Right, that's one of the older signs. It eventually kind of got old and faded, and then he took it down and put another small different sign up there. But yeah, there was I remember that sign, and it was stored back behind the garage for quite a few years, but eventually it just kind of fell apart and stuff. But yeah, here's some of the different mounts that my dad do. There's pretty good size elk head shoulder mount, pretty good size wolf rug. And then the different assortments of all the different fish that he mounted all the time. He did some pretty amazing mounts in his lifestyle, that's for sure. And then that's the one picture that's kind of showing him when he's out there trapping for muskrat. And then there's one of his archery pictures when he got a spike elk during archery season. There they got the old fashioned bow, the long bows instead of the compounds like they have today. It was a little more of a challenge even back then. Then the one bear Blackie that we had, that's my brother Jim there. And there's mom and dad out in the cave. Yeah, Blackie got to be a pretty good sized little bear. I think through time, dad had sold him to another zoo. But there was one time that, okay. The one time we came home from church, my mom had got Jim a little bag of jelly beans. And she told him, don't go out by Blackie with your bag of jelly beans, but he did anyway. He come back in the house after a while crying that Blackie ate all his jelly beans. Blackie had just grabbed him, held him, and ate all the jelly beans, and turned him loose. He come crying in the house and saying, Blackie ate my jelly beans. So I told you don't go out there. We had a few interesting things happen to us when we were growing up. That picture in the middle is one of my favorite pictures of my dad. Those are the pet badgers that Tuck. Tuck is the one that's in my dad's right arm. He had the whiter stripe on his nose. Nip had the skinnier stripe. The picture right there, those Nip is on each side, but Nip was the easier badger to work with. Tuck sometimes kind of had a different disposition. It comes with all animals, you know. Find that happen. But yeah, they were a good pair of badgers there. Sometimes when a stray dog would come into the yard, it didn't take long for that dog to leave. Get together, pull those out there and scare it away. They're a pretty powerful little animal. It doesn't take long for them to dig a hole. You can tell their big long claws and stuff, they can do some digging. There's a picture of the coyote and the badger. They never did really go out and actually fight, you know, let some people think that two animals will get together and fight, but they really don't. But they all stooped. He was out there digging a hole, and the coyote was curious of what's going on. And so, you know, they all respected each other and stuff like that. It was pretty good. Nature takes care of itself. They all get along real good, so it's pretty amazing. And that was our pet coyote Tuffy. That's my brother Jim. The tourists used to give us a quarter to make the coyote happy. So I killed it. This is the old black and white days when the days were fun back then. That picture up there in the middle, that's my dad. That's just like a lazy afternoon and you're just playing with your house cat. Just laying down and enjoying the sun and the cat's just sitting there licking the top of your head, probably purring for you. When they purr pretty loud. And of course, my dad did a lot of TV presentations. He went to Denver for quite a bit, advertised for different furniture companies, and different things like that. The picture down here on the bottom here, that's with John Denver. They did a little deal in Aspen I'm thinking that was about like 78, 79, somewhere around that time maybe. But they hired my dad to play the part of a trapper. I'm not exactly sure why John was there. But anyhow, he flew in on the helicopter real quick, did some filming, and then he flew out. But they had a couple wolverine that they'd supposedly trapped, and they taken some pictures with wolverine and stuff. But then when this was all said and done, and since that was way back in the 70s, I'm not sure if they did collar those wolverine or not, but they supposedly had turned those two wolverine loose up at the Aspen area. But they survived or anything like that, I don't know. Nobody's ever really seen one in Colorado. I know they're talking about trying to retransplant them again, but just have to wait and see. This is when Alamosa used to have a zoo. Uh, they shut the zoo down because the college kids kept going down there and teasing all the animals real bad. They would get on top of the bald eagle cage and drop a rope through there and hang the eagle. They'd throw glass beer bottles in the seal cage. They'd cut their bellies open when they'd slide down the cement through the water. The camel, I know, got loose one night running around the downtown, and they given it a hit of acid. One thing about it, back in the old days, those cop cars, they had the big giant bubbles with the lights on it. That camel just goes up there and puts his whole mouth over that flashing bubble because they were trying to get him back in the cage and stuff. The same thing with the lion. They throw chunks of food in there that had acid in it. And the lion just got teased a lot. But anyhow, they called my dad one day and asked him if he wanted the lion from Alamosa. It was a big male lion. And he said, well, I can't afford it. And they said, no, do you want it? Because they shut down the zoo. We got to get rid of these animals. So my dad did decide to take it. And he was going to maybe use it for breed purposes. But as time went on, the lion did get my dad one night. He ended up with over 100 stitches in his head there. I was still in high school when all this happened. I know it was an evening time and it was starting to snow. My dad was out there trying to put fresh straw in the boxes before it got real late. And then I was inside doing homework. One of us was playing our musical instruments with band, practicing for the Christmas concert or something like that. But my mom was in the kitchen cooking, and then all of a sudden she's yelling at us to tell us to be quiet. And she opens the door, and I could hear Dad's voice in the background yelling, "Help!" And so Mom went running out. As she went running out, she grabbed a shovel. And the lion that had him pinned up. But what my dad had done, he walked into the lion cage and he set down an armload of straw and he turned around to latch the door back. And as he went back down, to pick up that ball of straw to put in his box, as he had bent down, then the lion had attacked him and jumped on him. So my dad rolled over and kept trying to kick him off. He kept shoving his fist in his mouth, trying to get him off, and the lion would shake loose, and you could, since he fought the wire so much down here in Alamosa, his fangs were rounded off and everything, so he couldn't penetrate through my dad's scalp. But my dad said you could feel the teeth just scraping across the skull, and so he had quite the experience. But when my mom got out there with the shovel, she was beating the heck out of the lion over the head with the shovel. And the lion wasn't even responding or anything. So she finally took the shovel handle, jabbed it in the ribs, and that got the lion's attention. The lion looked up at my mom. He was just staring at my mom, and he was doing that, and my dad crawled out in between her legs. Tabby, the good tame lion, was next door, and my dad was trying to get over to its cage to open the door to see if it would fight off the male lion. But, with him pinned down like that, against the corner of the cage right there. It was hard for him to do anything. Once my mom had beaten it off, and then we rushed him to the hospital, and they got him all stitched up. But we decided to go ahead and keep the line for long enough to make sure it didn't have rabies. My dad didn't really want to sell it to another zoo or anything like that in case it went for somebody else, because it was used to, since it had been teased so much, it was just a line that just couldn't be trusted. So anyhow, when the one picture before this one, when we were doing when my dad did a lot of programs up in Denver. One time when he was coming home from Denver with the lion, he had a burned out tail light. And I think he got on the south end of Denver. The cop stopped him. The cop went up there to look his license registration. The lion reached out and licked the cop's face. The cop moved his head. And if you're familiar with the house cat, they got a rough tongue. It's a picture of mountain lion, and their tongue's like 40, 50 grade sandpaper. So, but anyhow, he didn't get a ticket for the burned out tail light. He got a warning on it, but the bad thing about it is the cop called ahead, and it took him forever to get home then. Because every little county and city he was going through coming home, he got stopped. So that the next cop could see the line. So it took him a while to get home that night. Yeah, there's a lot of different stories like that happen. This is one of those little snow caving excursions. People how to snow cave is doing it for fun and survival. We took out quite a few trips doing that. I'm sure some of you in here maybe have been on one.
What years did he do it?
Oh, from the 70s clean up to 2000. But we did that for quite a few years.
I went to his.
Yeah, there's so many of them, I lose track of them. There was a lot of them, and even the summer backpack trips that we used to take out. So. Okay. This is probably one of the skill camps where he's describing, showing any kind of a wiki up for a shelter. We're talking about that. He always used his hat for a good drinking cup. Back then we always drink out of the stream. And some of the camps areas that we had up in the mountains, we'd always have good sites to where we found springs coming fresh up out of the ground. But nowadays, most people don't drink out of the creeks anymore like we used to. But anyhow, it was pretty fun back then. Yeah, I'm thinking this is up on Squaw Creek. He got his pickup stuck right there, and so there's a travel tractor pulling him out.
Yes, river.
Um,
Part of the river.
I,
The back,
it's
the back.
Shallow Creek, okay. I was thinking it said Squaw, but I couldn't remember. And you thought this picture's at 40 back of it.
That's not very shallow to me.
And then this is one of our backpack trips when he started taking out the Wichita State University. There was a professor out there that got in touch with my dad and wanted to bring out close to 30 students at a time, and they get credit for doing it. And we take them out on a 6-day backpack trip. This is one of them. This is up high on tree line. We'd usually have a 6-day route. The first 2 days we'd be working our way up towards the top of the divide. And then the third day we pull over the top and then drop down into another canyon. And then usually sometimes the fourth day, we try to have a layover day to let the people rest and then they can enjoy fishing and, or if they wanted to go bathe in the creek or something like that. So, but here they're probably sitting down and talking about some of the wildflowers around them, and different things like that, because we'd always, every time we'd stop for rest and let everybody gather up, he'd always give some kind of a little lecture about animal trash and the flowers, or you know, just maybe talking about avalanche shoots, different things like that. And these are probably all, the one over there is he's showing a conifer trap for beaver. And then he's describing on the other one, an elk antler. Not sure if that was at a previous skill camp or if that was just at a camp that people were just interested in seeing the different antlers and stuff like that. That was the same picture.
And that is the last one.
That's the last slide, guys. That's my.
Oh. Did you have a different category of others?
No, I don't. So is there any more that you want? You might stop sharing, Greg, if you can stop sharing the presentation. This would be a good time for you to show the objects that you've brought, both to the Zoom people and to
Okay.
the audience.
Ready to go down.
Well, it will be if
But anyhow, I got a few things that I brought in. This is a demonstration of just some of the arrowheads that you can put on your shaft. The Indians used the rose hip bush to make their arrow shafts. They'd straighten it up in the fire when it was green, and then cut little notches in the top of it, to where they could tie on an arrowhead to the top of it right there. But then this one's kind of a more modern arrow here, but you can still put a broadhead on it and flint knap broadhead, and that's still capable of killing a deer if you wanted to try to kill a deer. There was one year that Chief Fire Eagle did have his own homemade points and everything, and he did kill a 4-point buck. My dad mounted it for him. He was pretty happy with that. This is one of Fire Eagle's points also. This is made out of obsidian.
you get obsidian around here. too.
Around here, most of this obsidian came from probably Oregon area. There might be some over in the West Cliff side or something, but it's not real good quality chip. Yeah, my dad, well, it's just like with Indians and the mountain men and all that, they'd always trade. And there was people that traded my dad for, when he got the obsidian rock to be able to do some of this stuff. This point is just out of a piece of glass. So you can make weapons just with broken glass. So you can definitely, if you can't find obsidian, you can use glass. Here's one arrowhead that's made out of flint. The glass arrowhead and this flint one, there was an instructor that helped my dad out at Premier Skill. His name was Bo, and he was from the Arkansas area. He did a lot of primitive stuff back there. These are a few different necklaces that Chief Fire Eagle would make. He was pretty good at chipping. And then he had these little teeny tiny horsehair baskets. We'd always teach basket weaving. But anyhow, he had pretty pretty good hands to be able to weave something that small. But, what's that? Chief Barney was Aztec. Here's my dad's 22 pistol that he used on his trap line. And I'm guessing this was a government issue through the Trapping Association or the Predator Association, because it does say police on the side of the barrel. It's an old Colt 22. And then he did purchase on this 250 Savage. And this is all he used on the trap line. And like I said earlier, he did most of anything that was in a trap, he killed most of it with the 22. But if you're a good shot, you can drop anything. And then, of course, this is his old riding saddle. It's pretty old and rustic looking. I'd like to fix it up someday and get it re-oiled. There's a couple of consoles on it missing and stuff, but there's definitely a few miles on this riding back and forth on that divide. You know, from Wolf Creek Pass, going over to West Lost Trail Creek, there's a lot of miles. Yeah, of course, some of his old leather shirts. Yeah, she made these. She was a sewer in the family. We did a lot of leather garments, custom Indian and Western wear garments. They used to, well, even before they started making Indian garments, my dad used to make a ton of chaps and custom leather belts. He made a lot of that stuff. He had all the leather tools and all that to do that.
His wife made me a vest probably 25 years ago. I still got, I was gonna wear it down here, but he said it would probably take 2 cows. She was a jokester.
Well, sometimes it takes more leather than you think.
Yeah,
There's a lot of hand work
but it's,
there.
I mean, it's still the same shape that I got.
That's good. Glad you got lots of enjoyment. I remember they made a lot of leather garments, they really did, so. But I know as time went on, you know, my dad, he's one of the ones that actually started the San Luis Valley Search and Rescue. He's the one that kind of got the Pedro bull hunters going, and that archery range still operates up there at Rock Creek. I got records, they're in storage, but on one of these days, I'm gonna sit down and look through all that stuff. And even all those years of trapping, he recorded every year of how many kills he made and all that. So I got all that on record. I'd like to sit down and just go through all of it. There is some pretty amazing stuff there, really. So.
Jerold,
Oh, 1 second.
did he get a grizzly bear?
Yeah, he did, and that was kind of back
And
in.
that's what I wanted to do. Let me
Okay,
clear the
yeah.
microphone real quick here.
Okay.
So I appreciate that, everybody. What I was about to say is, I think we've done the presentation part, and I'd sure like to have some time to open it up for questions. And so you folks online, please put something in the chat for Kelly to read for us. And then we had a question right here in the room, and was that, did Ernie get a grizzly bear? I'll pass it back to Terry here.
Yes, that was back in 1951. He had a bear up there that was killing sheep, and it was at the head of Starvation Gulch. And so when he went up there, he set the trap, and then he went and checked a couple other traps, and then by the time he came back, he had it in the trap, and he went ahead and shot it and stuff. But yeah, it was a young grizzly, and I think there's a story in that 80-year-plus book of his that they had eventually found another little grizzly that they were thinking that was down towards Plantora and all that kind of back in that time. But they're thinking that maybe they were cubs out of that same litter. But anyhow, my dad supposedly had on record getting one of the last grizzlies in Colorado. Back then, I think they were still kind of supposedly protected. I'm not for certain. But then after all these years, in '79, Ed Wiseman ran into a grizzly down by Plantora. And that was a fairly old bear there. My dad skinned it, and it had a lot of arthritis in its joints and rounded off teeth and stuff like that. So I think Ed had a group of hunters out, and some of the hunters got ahead of him on the trail. It was during the archery season. And I think when the hunters passed by a sleeping bear in the trees or something, the bear woke up and realized something was going on, and so he went down the trail as Ed was coming up. I think they were just in a tight wooded area. You know, the bear was just trying to get by Ed, and Ed was trying to get by him. And Ed did have an arrow in his hand, stuck it in the jugular vein, packed, just trying to get by on the trail. So it's not like it was really a mad, mean bear or anything like that. It's just one of those situations that happen. But, so from 51 to 79, that's a lot of years for a grizzly not being seen in Colorado. But who knows, it's possible we still may have one. Supposedly I heard that somebody sighted one on Aspen Pass, years ago? But I heard that they never found any proof of it, but anyhow.
All right, certainly, this is a great time when you've got Jerry here. Let's ask him questions. Anything online yet, Kelly? Nothing yet.
Up asking about.
That was said from
Oh,
Jim.
yeah.
Is that your brother?
Jim.
Would that be your brother? Said Jim.
Can you read that,
Oh.
please, Kelly?
Yeah, so he said.
1 second.
Tegan said, I have a lot of respect for him and his dad. There should be a book written. And Jim Wilkinson is on the Zoom, and he said, actually, Ernie wrote several books.
Yes, it did.
Jerold can give you more information.
Pressure's on.
This was one of his first books that he wrote, the 80 Year Plus. Actually, I think it was a Snow Caving book that came out first. And I think some of the first copies, they might be set back there on that other table. But then when my dad was working with Kessler, they had gotten together with it, and they called it Adobe Printing, and they printed books up together, because he had books on the history of the valley also. But this was probably one of the first original Snow Cave books. And I can't remember who had published this one for him. And then there was another one that was published out like that. But then now this is I mean, it's the same chapters and everything, but this is the book of it now. This is the 80 Year Plus book. I do have some of these books available. I am getting low on these. And then the other 4 books are the books from when he wrote his newspaper article, his Outdoor Tips and Tales. There's volume 1, 2, 3, and 4. And they're broke up in decades. Oh, he wrote it from 1968 to 2013 was his last book, or the last newspaper article for Outdoor Tips and Tales. But anyhow,
You remember those articles? I knew it. That's all.
I know everybody was dedicated to read it every week. He was pretty famous for that. They definitely missed him when he quit writing it. My mom had passed away in 2013, and dad had passed away in 2015, so he had a lot of definitely great years and stuff, so.
Came of the horn oranges.
Repeat the question, please, for the online folks.
He was asking what became of the antler orange. When, well, my mom and dad wasn't rich, so, you know, Medicaid pretty much kind of took over everything, so we just got all the good stuff out of that. We got in touch of a horn company out of Arizona that came up and bought it. We offered them to the guy up here in South Fork, but we were waiting and waiting, never got an answer back. And then once we sold them, then he called up. But anyhow, when we tore that apart, there was 1,500 pounds, over 1,500 pounds of antlers there. There was some pretty nice big elk antlers in there. They had some long tines on them, points. There is some deer antlers that I did save out of it that were full, nice big ones. There were 6 of them that I did save out of it. But and back then, you know, even now, chalky antlers are only worth $1 a pound. They were mostly shed antlers, yeah. They were shed antlers that he had found every time he became excursions and stuff.
So Gerald, that, in that same time frame when you were moving those antlers, before that, somebody came and stole a bunch of them, remember?
Yeah,
And remember tell the story how they caught the guy.
well, there was somebody coming by there and typing them off, and the neighbor had called me and said, hey, there's somebody over there taking antlers off that archway. And I said, well, he's not supposed to. But anyhow, by the time Lynn Sewell, he was the neighbor that called me. By the time he got turned around, he was in a big truck and couldn't turn around that fast. But anyhow, it was easy to identify my dad's antlers because at one year, there was a gentleman that came to him and he wanted the butt end of the antler to make different jewelry on it, necklaces and belt buckles and stuff like that. He would engrave little mountain lion head of a picture and then inlay a little gold or turquoise or different silver or something like that and make different things like that. And so most of those antlers that guy took, all the butts were cut off on the end. He'd gone to the South Fork to sell them up there. But he got caught selling them even, stealing them down in Lahara. I mean, he was going all over the valley, looking at people's yards and typing antlers. But the big antler archery was just the easiest for him, I guess. That was about the time when my dad was in the nursing home and stuff like that happened.
Remarkable endurance that Ernie had. I'm not sure of his age, but when you guys were doing your trips over the, in Rio Grande Reservoir, carrying the sleds with beaver traps and things like that, it was just such a remarkable thing that I felt like he did.
They were asking about Dad's endurance for the high country and all that. I mean, he was pretty amazing. Even when we took these college trips out way back then, when there was 30 kids, we'd have to go through their backpacks to help lighten up their backpacks. So they'd have family can sizes of deodorant, a pair of clothes for every day, and you know, and it was just a 6-day backpack trip. They're carrying almost 100 pounds. But and even then, I can remember as a little kid, just going from up Fern Creek going to Ruby Lake for the first night. That's like about a 5-mile hike or something. But people were wearing out, and so we'd take our packs in, then we'd come back and put on somebody else's pack. And I remember me and my brother, and my dad too, you know, we each got backpacks on our back, and then we still had a backpack in each arm going up the trail just to get the people in there, and they were walking empty. But you know, when you're from low altitude, that does make a difference when you're not used to the altitude. And even my dad did mention that when he went to the Korean, got drafted for the Korean War, when he went to boot camp, he said that all that trapping in the high country, running around at 12,000 feet all the time for all the summers he did before he got drafted. And it really made a big difference for him because people even in boot camp couldn't believe that to him, boot camp was easy. And, but even in the wintertime, the endurance of just going out there. And I know your husband Grant heard he went on a few of those excursions with Dad, so. He's amazing. I don't know how he did it sometimes, but he still does. Or did it. Yeah, when we went over the Weminuche, yeah, he was in the 70s. The last time he went over that, I think he was 83. He wanted to do it one more time. And I think that winter, I couldn't make it. And I called Grant to ask him, and I think Grant went on that trip. We started the Rio Grande Reservoir and go up Weminuche and drop down the Vespinos. And when the very first time we did that trip, was in 79, 80 winter. I worked at Red River Ski Area that winter, and when I came back, we did that trip in March. And there was 8 of us. There was Alan Barn Caldwell, Terry Whitey, the chiropractor, Kevin, and his sister, and my brother, my dad. But there was 8 of us. Is there somebody I'm missing? But, yeah, we did that trip in 4 days. And that was the year that Wolf Creek broke a new record of getting over 800 inches total snowfall. And there was a lot of snow. I can remember getting to the top of Weminuche that winter. And we're out there in the flats of Weminuche. And we're still at the edge of tree line. And my dad's avalanche probe was 12 foot long and he couldn't hit the ground. That's how deep it was that way. So,
Oh, right. There's the mountain lion tabbies that when you got rid of them, you put them in a zoo or your dad deal, and then he went back a year later.
oh man. The
Yeah, okay. What you do with it?
well, the Tabby, this is the oldest. She lived to be 22. That was my dad's favorite lion. But I know Doc, the one that got me and my brother Jim, I think they had sold him to a zoo in Grand Junction. Because they were getting a little nervous since Doc kept coming after us. Anyhow, I mean, we'd had a couple other cats even after that. Which incident are you talking
I
about?
was just thinking your dad said he went back, like he put one of your mountain lions like in another place, and he went back a year later and they kind of recognized each other.
Yeah. But then also he noticed that some of the lions that were in other zoos always walking on cement all the time. They didn't have the long lifestyle either. Because being on that cement floor, it was hard on them. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a dog, they don't forget. My dad did go back and revisit some of those lions and they remember each other. So. Yes.
In his line of work, I'm assuming, run into Indians in the area at that time. Can you share any of the experiences with, I'm always fascinated with the culture and interactions between,
Well,
people back then?
Chief Fire Eagle, my mom and dad had been doing prairie skill camp for a few years before Chief Fire Eagle ever came about. And he was a pretty amazing old Indian. And he lived to be 96, I think. And he was very good at chipping arrowheads and his knowledge of basket weaving, and he was just a very simple old Indian. There's some history about him when he first came into this valley, just, basically with just walking into the valley and looking for work and just spend a few nights underneath the tree out there as he was still, trying to find a job here and there, and all that, but, yeah, I mean, there is some, I mean, they learned a lot because, I mean, the Indians, whenever they made a kill, they didn't waste nothing. Every animal's brain is enough enzyme to tan its own hide. So that's how they got brain tan leather. The Indians did it that way, and then they saved the sinew from the muscle fiber for making thread and to help tie your points on your arrows and stuff. So there was always a lot of different use. They take rib bones to help make little needles and things like that. I mean, there was always some kind of history of them. Just they didn't let nothing go to waste. And that's today's problem. Everybody lets everything go to waste. And
Like to be the son of Ernie Wilkinson.
That's the question about life, please, Jerry. I'll hear that.
it was definitely different.
Stand like right here. They can see that. There you go.
Sometimes when we had to go out and help get the animals set up to do filming or something like that, it's like, I'd rather stay home and do something else, Anyhow, yeah, I mean, it was different, that's for sure. We all had our family quarrels. I remember, sometimes we'd go out in the yard, be playing, and start yelling and screaming. My mom would get all mad and she'd come running out thinking that maybe an animal or something had got us. So we had always got yelled at for roughhousing too much out in the yard sometimes. Yeah, we lived a good life. It was definitely different. Bottle feed, I mean, it was neat to bottle feed all these different animals, anywhere from cougar to coyote to prairie dog, bobcat. It was pretty fun, so.
All right, you guys, I hate to do this, but I'm gonna call this the end. Let me take over for a second here. Unless there's any last minute questions out there, I guess I can show myself online here. For Jerry, Jerold, we'll start wrapping it up. But before we do, let's go to Kelly, and she's got the winners of the door prizes. So I'm gonna bring her up there and she can announce those folks online or those in the room. And one last second, if you didn't get a red ticket, now's your chance. There's one. Okay, I'm on my way to get it.
I'll do the Zoom one while he's giving everybody a ticket. So this is actually the Zoom people, you guys listening, you guys. All right, Kylie Wilkinson, you won the prize. So she did. So Kylie, I'll have Jerold tell me what size you need. And we'll get it to you. We'll give it to you. All right. She won a t-shirt and the mug. Oh, okay. We'll get her shirt. All right. If you're in the room, just come to me and we'll get you. Yeah, we'll get you the, I have every size back there. So if whatever size you happen to be, I hopefully have it covered. All right. It's number 3762973. 2973. All right, come find me afterwards and we'll get you your shirt. All right, did you want to close it up?
Yes. So this is a difficult time because I could stay here for 2 more hours talking with Jerry here. And I can't say enough to everybody online and those of you attending in person. thank you for making this work, and more than anything, thank you, Jerold Wilkinson. It's kind of difficult to share stories like this, but man, I had fun tonight, so I'm gonna be calling you and let's talk some more. And there we have it, folks. Again, thank you for coming on behalf of the Rio Grande National Forest and the San Juan Mountains Association. Have a great night, and yes, this has been recorded, and we'll see it on the YouTube channel as soon as we can get Kelly to do that. For those of you that missed. Have a great night, and I appreciate it. And of course, those of you in the room, you're welcome to come up and view the items up here on the table. Again, have a great day, and that concludes.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. That is my job. Forest Service, the Forest Specialist Series next month is about cranes with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services Suzanne Bouchane. So that should be a really fun Forest Specialist Series. It'll be right about the same time next month, and it will be online. I don't think we're going to do it hybrid, but we may talk about that amongst ourselves. Thank you for asking. I appreciate that, sir. All right, again, have a great night, everybody.